A little show of hands here of people who've been in their sales role for less than a year. Okay, so quite a few of you. So I think this question will be quite important to everyone. What advice would you give someone who's just started off in their sales role to make sure that they have the best possible start to their career? Who would like to go first?
I think this one ties in nicely enough with my talk a little bit, but to be honest, just go like mental with everyone around you. Like sometimes when you're new to companies, you know, your manager will make you introduce yourself to the people in the business and everything. And I'm sure some of you work at like different sized companies, but typically the first thing I did when I came to my company was I just spent like half an hour in everyone's diary who was in my office of 20, so I'm not mental, but literally just getting to know every different function, all aspects of the business, how the whole sort of structure of the business works. So I'm getting a good perspective of everything that's going on. And then through doing that, subsequently, you're starting to understand, right, well, that guy knows his shit. I want to know what he's about and start spending more time with that person. Or, you know, you hear something interesting from someone else and then you're starting to get a bit of an inside perspective into the business, but also into your role, right? Like you speak to your manager and they'll sell the job to you and what you're doing, but then speaking to someone else, you're like, oh, well, wait a second, that person does my job that they're talking about and they're telling me something valuable about them too. So I think very simply put, when you're new to a job, just make sure that you like really spend the time just getting to know everyone around you. So yeah.
Very good.
Yeah, just to add to that, I mean, yeah, so you'll all have your onboarding stuff and you have to learn the process and you learn the product and your market and everything like that. But I think something we do is we have this thing where every Friday we'll get together and we'll do a pitched, presentation to the rest of the group. And I think when you start, I'd say just book something in that just throwing you in the deep end. So that means you've got to learn. It's something you just throw yourself in the deep end. So you've just got to get yourself out there and you're going to have to perform. And book that in, and then I think that will help you really develop.
Yeah. Good one. I think the most important thing when you're starting as an SDR is actually being one step ahead. Okay, so if your manager asks you to do 2, then you do 4. Okay, you always want to work a lot harder. You want to make sure that you know every single prospect. You want to make sure that you know the industry in and out, just so that if your sales directors turn around and ask you a question, you can actually tell them this, and that. Okay, so I think that's the most important thing.
So I found out I had ADHD about 8 months ago, which was kind of crazy. So when I started the job, I was basically running around like a lunatic puppy, and it worked for a time. But what I'd say is just take it slow and ask loads of questions. Like when you think you're asking too many questions, that's when you're asking not enough questions. Just keep and learning, and then, but like after that probation period, like slow down with the questions. But yeah, just take it slow and ask loads of questions.
I think, as I mentioned, be a yes person. Try and take advantage of every opportunity that's in front of you. I think a piece of advice someone gave me on my first day also was add every single person you meet in your first 6 months on LinkedIn. It just helps you to understand where everybody is situated and how everybody works together, and also leaves you with a killer network when you leave the company or they leave.
Okay, so let's have a brave volunteer. Hand up, please, if you'd like to ask a question. I will bring it over here. Watch out, guys.
Can you hear me okay? Yeah. So just to add context to my question first. So my name's Mike. I'm the SDR manager at a company called Trip Actions. My task at the moment is to double the SDR team. But I'm really struggling to find female SDRs or females in sales. And I think the question really, and I don't want to put you on the spot, but it's mostly to Liz. What advice would you say, I mean, looking at the room now, it's pretty male-dominated. What advice would you say to young female sales professionals that are trying to really develop themselves in this environment?
I'll run it back over. So how do we get more ladies? I think the Venetrix statistic, and Elaine might correct me on this, that this year we've done actually 44%. 47% of the placements that we've made have actually been female. So it may just be completely dependent on teams, but what would you say to that?
So I guess I'll start by saying in London, our current SDR team is of 5 people and they're all women. So maybe I have a little bit of a bias, but who cares? I would say in general, probably the biggest barriers to people to women getting started in this position is the dynamic in the room. So I think sometimes acknowledging the fact that there's a lot of dudes in here, ladies, I think we can all agree with that. And then also just taking down what the barriers might be. So it's super competitive, but it's also about communication. So framing what you're talking about in such a way that maybe lend itself to more female skills, but that are also very important. All of these guys need to be able to speak to their prospects with extreme articulation, but they're seen as hunters, whereas I'm seen as a nurturer or communicator in the positioning of the position to females. Does that answer your question?
Okay, another question, please. I'm coming straight to the back. Here you go, my man.
Thank you. I was going to ask, what's the best way to spend your learning budget? I've got quite a good one. I asked my LinkedIn network yesterday, and I got one reply from James Ski saying sales confidence. And here I am. So, yeah, I read a lot, listen to a lot of podcasts and videos and stuff, but different things when you have to spend money, yeah.
Okay, quite an interesting question. Benetrix yet to get that on the thing yet, Elaine. But yeah, who would like to go first? Who has a training budget and what would you do with it? Yeah, let's go ahead.
So we don't have a training budget. But we are, I know we're pretty resourceful. YouTube's a good place to start. But genuinely, there are so many companies out there and they'll all try and get your attention for whatever. But it's just focus on really what you want the outcome for your team to be. What do you actually want them to walk away from? And that will really help you focus who you're going to choose, because they will keep upselling and upselling more things and just, really focus down. But honestly, podcasts and our boss empowers us and makes us, what makes us, that's a bit unfair. But we want to go out and we're constantly learning ourselves. And we've been bred that environment to go out. I listen to work podcasts on the way to work, and I'm constantly learning about my industry just from my own self. So I don't know, but breeding that environment is a good place to start, I think. And then people will sort of blossom into what they want to know about. Yeah.
Yeah, go on. I think it's, LinkedIn is a very good tool, so I'd keep on that. I'm spending more time on LinkedIn than Instagram. It's kind of worrying. But I'd say it's also very important to actually keep it your own role. So be creative, make it your own role, kind of take advice from everyone, but also just keep a whiteboard and just jot down ideas and actually look into making your own kind of statement and building your own kind of SDR, if that makes sense. Building your own brand.
One more as well. This isn't a hashtag ad, but the Venetrix SDR training is actually really good. I learned a lot from it as well, so I don't know if you've done it, but that's the only experience I had with training. I don't think we have a training budget or anything, but yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, I'll just add into that. Did you want to go?
Yeah, just very quickly, just to add on to all of those opinions. Keep doing what you're doing now. You're asking everyone, and you're networking, and you're asking people from different companies what they're doing. One of the things I did when I was new to the SDR role, and one of the things I did when I was new to the management role, I spoke to Mike quite recently on a call, and I was we were leveraging each other. What softwares are you guys using? Are these working for you? Are they rubbish? We're using this. Do you guys know of any other better ones? You keep doing what you're doing now, you'll start to find out that there's some other stuff you should be looking into, and you're doing the right thing.
Yeah, I don't think you need to rush, essentially, to spend your training budget. But I think a point I would like to add is that I think when you are doing your job, you're going to all of a sudden, you're going to face things, maybe challenges, maybe things that you wish you could do a little better. So maybe you should make a little mood board of things that you'd like to do, maybe set out a list of objectives that you'd like to achieve, and if money will help you get there, then spend it on it. Very good question. Can we get another one, please? At the back again. I'm running everywhere. I should have a skateboard down here. Here you go, sir.
My name is, sorry, my voice is a bit sore, but my name is Ray. My question would be, do you see the SDR role at all changing over the next 5 to 10 years because of essentially the move towards more marketing-led sales or the evolution in different sales enablement technologies? And if so, how will it change the ratio? Seriously, my voice isn't this bad. I don't know what's happening.
Get this man a water. Sorry, it's the microphone. It's happened to my voice as well. Who would like to start it off? Here you go.
So our SDR team's actually gone through a bit of an evolution over the last couple of years. So at one point, in almost all regions, got rid of our outbound team because our marketing was working so efficiently that we were able to generate enough leads that we didn't need to have an outbound team in order to hit our numbers. We're in the process of evaluating bringing that back. So to answer your question as to whether or not you think this is going to change over the next 10 years, absolutely. I think it's going to change over the next 10 months and 10 minutes even, depending how every individual operates their business. And I think the marketing piece is interesting because as marketers kind of hit the nail on the head and then realize they need to readjust, that may change over time. But in general, yeah, absolutely. I think we're in for some massive changes over the next 10 years.
Yeah, I think 100% echoing a little bit what Liv said, but it's basically, it is going to change in terms of the market is always going to change, sales is always going to change, so it is going to change in terms of, are we going to be glued into marketing, are we going to be sales, or are we going to be a bit of both? Now, this is why it's always good to kind of step out of the SDR role and kind of learn a little bit about everything. And make it in Matrix, we kind of make the SER team make sure that we're kind of the glue between marketing, sales, and all of the other departments within the company. Okay, we have calls with the developers just to gather some ideas and actually look at what we're doing in some regions. So I think just do a bit of everything, and you'll be able to adapt to those changes that the market's going to bring.
Okay, we'll get a couple more, and then we'll finish off. And you're really making me run around. Oh, we'll have one close, and then I'll come to the back. Here you go.
Yeah, just a quick one. So with regards to SDR AE setup in your companies, I'm an SDR manager. Just wondering how you guys actually split that out. Because we've considered having one-on-one pairings with SDRs and AEs before, like we had in the past, split by territory. But also, we've gone from that to more of an SDR bank and round-robin system right now. So just wondering what you guys do in your teams, or what your managers do in your teams for that.
Okay, so a bit more of an insight into either if you've got a team and how you manage your staff, or maybe how you're getting managed in your current team.
So I have a team of, I think it's 5 or 4 SDRs, 1 BDR at the moment in my team. The SDRs are obviously doing the outbound, so they're working with AEs. The ratio for us is 2 to 1, so 2 AEs to each to each SDR, sorry. And generally speaking, I think that you'll speak to a load of different people here who'll have different setups, or maybe they won't have designated ones. They'll just do it for a group and things like that. For me, as an SDR manager, what you should be really thinking about is just like, how is their relationship together? Like, one thing that I'm always emphasizing to my team, but also to the account execs, is like, how often are they sitting down? What's the structure of their one-to-ones? How are they actually collaborating with one another? To the extent where I'm not being too micromanagey or anything, but also sitting down with the account execs and being like, well, how are you getting on with your SDR? And speaking with the SDRs and being like, how are you getting on with them? I mean, the most efficient relationships will always be when they're collaborating all of the time. I mean, for me, when I was an SDR, I really liked my A's and we got on very well. So when it came to targeting territories and looking at the market that they were working, we felt like we were one unit rather than I'm doing my job and you're doing your job. So if you aim to get them doing that, then you've hit the nail on the head, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'm a bit unique, so I can't add too much on that. We are a full end-to-end sales role, so we were all SDRs before, maybe BDRs, and then we're put into sort of full SDR all the way to closing roles. There's only 3 of us in the team. But what I think I've learned from that is, I think, kind of just to add, is just building that relationship, kind of knowing that I'm booking the meetings for myself, sort of thing. It just builds the quality. And that if I'd applied that to my last role, I would have wished I'd sort of added a bit more relationship, or a bit more included, maybe in like the Monday team meetings, at like sales meetings, rather than being separated, which we were at the time, that sort of stuff. So just bringing everyone together, like Griff said, would be awesome.
Should we get Liz in the end to see how you do it?
I think it depends on the size of both teams. Because one thing that I'm very cognizant of is protecting my SDRs, because I don't want to feed them to the wolves. I think having too big a ratio of having like 5 or 6 or 7 to 1, they're not going to do a good job with any of those reps because you need the type of relationship that was mentioned previously. And then opposingly, like if you can have a 1 to 3 ratio, I think personally that's like the sweet spot. But depending on resourcing, it's not always an option. So round robin sometimes works. So it depends on your team. But yeah, thanks. Yeah, it's challenging, and the thing that I think of myself as being is like the gatekeeper, and it's always my responsibility to like keep the shit out of my SDR's face, and if the shit ends up being them being bombarded by so many requests that they're not able to get their job done or hit their number or be happy and successful, that's when I would step in and introduce a round robin system. So it sounds like you might be in the position of making a switch. Oh, go for it, yeah.
So we actually have a 1-to-1 ratio. So every AE has an SDR, and that SDR switches between the AE every couple of months. And it builds like really close relationships between the AE and the SDR to the extent in which at the beginning, there's a lot of communication between the AE and the SDR, and so you're building that trust, building that communication, understanding how each other works, and then sort of as it progresses, you can start to become a little bit more autonomous. And that gives the SDR as well, like a little bit more freedom to pursue in their job, because obviously SDRs want to move up into AEs, so it sort of develops it. But I understand that we're also reviewing that as well. So I think it's just a recurring theme. I'm not really sure there's a right answer to it, but yeah.
All right, thank you very much, speakers. You can take a seat. Everyone, a big round of applause. Okay, so I think we can all agree that it's been a very good evening. We've got a great insight into, I guess, different people's opinions of what life is like in their job roles. So that's a wrap for us today. Remember, this event doesn't happen without you, so make sure when possible that you're sharing the Sales Confidence event. Let your friends know, invite someone along next time. And now, if you all look to your right-hand side, you'll notice we have some pizza. So please do help yourself to some food, some drinks, and I'll see you all shortly.